This is what we do every week, helping people out, diving a little bit deeper in that, talking about clearing, cleansing some of those things from your bodies, from your energy.
This is more my space. So Zach's more real estate space. I'm more in the energetics. And
you should listen to her because she's really freaking smart when it comes to these things.
He is like the happiest, most positive person that I know. So much so I'm like, is this real? Like, but it is.
I'm an expert in creative finance, love creative finance, talk your face off about that and all the wonderful things with that, mindset, and raising private capital.
I'm an energy healer. I teach intuitive development and spiritual mentor, and I help people learn about themselves and how to use their energy and the energy around them to create realities that they really enjoy and want.
Whatever comes up for you guys. That's the point. That's the beauty of you guys showing up here live for everything, is that we want to answer your questions. We want to dive deeper into your examples. We want to help you specifically. Yo, yo, yo.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, honey.
What? Another episode, another thing of fun. We're all in relationships. You guys have relationships? We have.
Everyone has relationships,
right? And then, I don't know. She was like, don't guys want to talk about relationships? And I'm like, I don't know that guys really want to talk about them.
Everybody wants to talk about relationships because we all want love, whether we think we do or we don't, whether we will admit if we do or we don't.
I guess that's fair.
It is something that we all deeply desire. So if you are live with us, feel free to say hey.
Yeah.
If you are watching the replay, feel free to say hey.
Yo, yo.
One of us will pop back on and greet you.
Absolutely.
And yeah, so today, this is so bright. What is happening with this?
I don't know.
No, it's because I'm scooted back more. Okay,
hey, Tammy.
there we go.
Woohoo. Happy Monday.
Hey, Tammy.
Love that.
So yeah, so last week, if you guys were with us last week or you watched last week, we started hopping into talking more about relationships and how relationships are a really wonderful mirror for how we show up in other areas of life, because they bring everything, like they put it in your face, right? Because relationships is where we're willing, some of us, we're willing to be vulnerable. We're willing to be exposed. We're willing to show parts of ourselves that we might hide or contract away from in other areas of our life. Therefore, relationships are a wonderful area to show us where we are contracting in other areas of life, or where we are preventing ourselves from really receiving wealth, abundance, success, more love, deeper love, more intimacy, even in other relationships. And it allows us hopefully a safe container to navigate those limiting beliefs or those feelings, those blocks within us, and to have someone who can help us grow past them and evolve past them. Now, not all relationships are healthy or are at a mature enough point where we can navigate those limiting beliefs, right? We can navigate those big emotions. We can express those big emotions with our partner and have that space held for us, which having space held for you is simply if Zach is having a really, really rough day and he comes home and he's snapping at me and he's just feeling down, then me holding space for him would look like me remaining calm, right? I'm remaining calm. I understand that he just got home, so whatever he's feeling is not directed at me, but he's just releasing it in that way. So I'm going to remain calm so he can vent. And then afterwards, I will communicate to him, hey, what you did back there, like maybe next time we could do something different.
Yeah, not as cool, but maybe we can make it a little better.
So there's holding space. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. So holding space is just like allowing your partner to go through that roller coaster of emotions without you joining them. and then guilting them like, well, you're yelling at me, so I'm going to yell at you, or you're yelling, so I'm going to yell, or you're crying, so now I feel bad because you're crying. No, it's just you are that rock for them to lean on in a moment of weakness. And or even a moment of vulnerability. I do not want to associate emotions with weakness. So in a moment of vulnerability. So
holding space, that's a good one to have that conversation about, because then it's something that you guys can relate to, and it ends up being that moment of patience and respect for the other person, and just understanding that, you know, that's not how they are all the time. And giving them that opportunity to make those mistakes too, and not be that perfect person that they are all the time, that they strive to be. So you're holding that space for that future person that they are, because you're living within that, because we're not all perfect.
And so, I would even say like a marker of the maturity of a relationship, a really good marker is how well you can hold space for your partner. So not all of us have relationships where we can openly express our emotions, where we can talk about our fears, or where we're holding shame, or what we're embarrassed about, or anything else, because our partner might use that against us, right? How many of us have been in relationships where our partner has used something against us, or our partner has turned it around on them when you're trying to express yourself, right?
Gotten angry and just made it all about them, as opposed to listening and then something to do after that. Maybe something better than just getting upset.
So a lot of us have experienced those types of relationships, but today we want to talk about how you can navigate conflict to create a healthy relationship dynamic, because there's going to be conflict in every relationship. Yeah.
And even just talking about that and just understanding, guys, whatever you're thinking, whether you hear relationship like, like romantic relationship, which we are talking about a little bit here, but we're using that as a lens to look through, to notice things about yourself in other areas of your life too. That's the beauty of it. Is sometimes we've mentioned before, we try to do self-reflection as much as possible, because once we're aware, then we can do something about it. But the idea of it's easier to see an issue in somebody else. We've talked about that. It's easier to see an issue in someone else. Again, ourselves, we have so many blinders on to that we can't usually. That's why, there's idioms around that, and you should have other people around you to help you, guide you in your journey. But this is just a wonderful way that you can see some other things in yourself. It might show up in your relationship, some issues in your business, or some issues in your fitness, or some issues in anything that you're really trying to do. Just your goals in life, how you go about one thing is how you go about everything. Oh my God, let me put that on the screen. Because how you go about one thing is how you go about everything. So just do everything, that same way. If you're lazy with one thing, you're going to be lazy with everything. If you do something like all the way to the T and it takes forever, you're probably going to do that with everything, or you're going to be disappointed if you don't even. That's a different conversation. But still, just the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So it's a great marker for you to look at your relationship that you have with your significant other, that you want to have with someone, with your business partner, with your family, with everyone. And you can see where maybe it's not exactly where you want it to be, or, what might be holding you back, and some of that. And then that can identify some things within us where we can end up shifting some awesome energy and clearing things out, so we can more easily just attract things towards us, being real with ourselves and being real with the world, so we can attract more things towards us. And that's what we're trying to do, is we're trying to shift that all, clear that out of you, so that you can really go after everything that you want in life. So this is just a lens, another lens. We could come at it from the business. We could come at it from a relationship with your family, with your friends, with your significant other, with anything, your pet even, people that treat their pets like crap. I imagine they have other crap relationships as well. So it's just, it's a lens that we can look through. And if you want to make your relationship a little bit better, and everyone always asks us about ours. Here's a little bit about ours, because it wasn't always a perfect relationship at the end of the day. It didn't, it start and stopped and up and down, and kind of, if you've ever seen that graph of success as entrepreneurship, it's not a straight line. It's zigzagging and all over the place. It's like
loop-de-loops and dips and highs and lows and all of the things.
And you get to ride that out like a wonderful... I hope you like roller coasters, because it's a doozy. Right?
So we will use our relationship as an example, like we did last week. And then please feel free to comment or associate whatever resonates with you with your own relationships. Because
What? Just ask questions, like whatever you're curious about, whether you're curious or something about us, please feel free, prod, poke, any of that. Or if you have something that relates to yours, and say, if you want to share something, just let us know, comment in, and we can make it tons of fun all around and helpful and useful. That's the whole point that I would see it as.
Yeah.
All right. Come on, so Smarty Pants. She's the good one. So you should listen to her.
We ended up.
I'm just trying to understand like you guys.
Yeah. We ended up kind of talking, like Zac and I are finally understanding that we are more than friends, that we like each other more than friends. But now is where like some of the really challenging parts of our relationship really kicked up, when we decided that, all right, we really enjoy spending time together. I was basically living with him at this point. And so, we really enjoyed spending time together.
Yeah, there was no basically about it. Mm-hmm.
And, but this was when a lot of his self-sabotage techniques really came front and center. My self-sabotage techniques really showed up, and how I communicate. And, this is kind of where like the party really started to get rocky for us. And so when a lot of people look at us and they're like, wow, you guys are so great together. We're great together because we had to learn how to be great together. It had to be like a will. Like I was willing to be patient with him. He was willing to be patient with me. And we were choosing the relationship over and over and over again, when at any point either of us could have walked away.
Yeah, chosen not to,
and just
obviously.
Like,
it's easy
cleaned
to
our
choose
hands and just been like, all right, whatever. This was a fun summer thing. And now it's over.
Ooh la la.
But
so good.
But like at the core of it, we both wanted a committed relationship, and 100%. We really, I think it's safe to say we were at the understanding that we were like ready for that to be with each other. Like we didn't just want a committed relationship with like anybody. I was choosing him, and he was trying to choose me. And so, we got to this point where a lot of us look at us and like, you guys are so cute, blah, blah, blah. And I agree. We are. And I love our relationship. And the first few months, there was lots of conflict around, just really, I think a big part of it was like how I communicated to you a lot. I came from
that's true.
A background of very aggressive communication, and I would assert myself very strongly in situations. And I think a lot of females can resonate with this. Either you kind of shy away from conflict, or you shy away from discomfort with other people, or you like dive right into it and you're just like, you want to fuck with me, then I'm going to give you something to fuck with. Ooh, and so
watch out.
Having gone to like grad school, I was bartending. I worked in corporate wellness at a manufacturing plant. So I was surrounded by testosterone. And then I would go from my job at the manufacturing plant and like I was on the corporate wellness side. Then I would go to bartend, and again, surrounded by a lot of testosterone. So I really had to, and then getting my master's degree, I had to learn to be assertive. I had to learn to speak my truth. I had to learn to really put my voice out there. And with the work settings that I was in, I had to learn to stand up for myself, because if you've ever worked in the restaurant industry, or you've worked with just a ton of men in general, and you're a female, like, it's like a dog eat dog world. So you got to hold your own. So I learned how to do that when I was like 21, 22, 23. So by the time we met, in most of my relationships, I had led with that aggressive, slightly aggressive, slightly assertive communication, where I would just be very direct with like, this is what I want. This is what's going to happen. And it was a little pushy. I think the energy behind it was a little pushy.
Oh, yeah, I would say you've got a pushy, more aggressive, strong, firm, but a little pushy too.
Yeah. And so when we met, and I had to adopt lots of patience and presence, because we didn't have a title for a very long time.
Right.
So when we finally decided like, okay, we're going to do this, then I would come from like a blaming perspective of like, well, this isn't happening because you're not doing this, or I thought I was being understanding, and I think I was being more understanding with Zac than I was with other partners. But there were certain areas in our relationship where I would maybe make comments that at the time I didn't think were a big deal, but would really stick with him. And then he, being an engineer, had to overanalyze everything. And he, in a sense, I think you had a fear, like I had a fear of being left. So I was very pushy. You had a fear of commitment. So you were a little more like standoffish.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, always having backup options, things as an engineer, always having, you know, what's your backup plan, your risk mitigation as a Boy Scout. Make sure, you know, you've always prepare for everything that can happen. So yeah, and I guess leading with that, always thinking those types of ways, thinking like an engineer thinks, it's always thinking about the worst, focusing on the worst, preparing for that, mitigating it, for ways to whatever. And it's like, you know, it's just so much energy put towards that as opposed to just attracting the happiness towards you and everything. But yeah, so I would do that because I've been through a divorce before. I guess there could be some things from that. We helped heal a little bit of that through all this time with me. But yeah, it just took a little bit of time for me to notice those things in myself and notice how I would act accordingly with those things, and then interacting with her. So it was tons of communication and uncovering things, and, you know,
and his
willingness, though, when she's talking in the beginning, you just want two people to be super willing. Otherwise, because it's going to get hard and then you're not going to want to.
But I think that, like, because you had that fear of commitment and I had a fear of like being left because I had been cheated on in my previous relationships, and you had gone through a divorce. So we both ultimately had the fear of ending up alone. Zac had a fear of commitment because he didn't want to commit to one person and then something go awry again. I had a fear of being left, being cheated on, not being chosen, because that was my experience in past relationships. But ultimately, both of those fears were either of us ending up alone. And a lot of us we can't zoom out enough to see what's the deeper fear here. What is driving this behavior? What is the actual reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now? And instead, we're so quick to blame the other person. Like I remember I would call Zac out on some stuff that I was finding out or I didn't agree with, and he would get very, very, very defensive. And then I would get very pushy and I would start yelling because that's how I learned how to communicate, and that would push him away, and that would cause him to even to just like want to cut me off even more, right? And eventually we would come to a conclusion, but that wasn't a healthy way to communicate. But how many people in relationships, you act like everything's fine and then you just have a yelling fight and you're screaming at each other,
bottling things up, not talking about everything, and then it just explodes and you're like, oh, this just works, this is normal or something. It's like
so many of us were modeled communication that's just, I hold it all in until I can't anymore, and then I'm gonna just vomit it all out. And I'm going to let you know how hurt I am by raising my voice, by maybe throwing things, by some people even resort to like hitting. And that is something that neither of us wanted to experience. But I knew that I had to learn how to communicate without yelling. And he had to learn how to open up because he would shell up and kind of recluse away from me. And at first.
Well, yeah, no, my normal is like to flight, just remove myself. I mean, that way I don't have to be patient. I don't have to hold space for anyone. Yeah, I can just repress it, move it away, storm pass. Okay, I'm good now. I pushed that into that closet that I'm never going to open again. And hey, what's up? How are you doing? We're good.
Because that's kind of what you experienced when you were younger. And I experienced the prior. And a lot of us don't realize that we show up in relationships like how we were modeled by our caregivers. And therefore we show up in other areas of our life that way. So in other areas of our life, where are we not speaking up, or where are we holding it all in? Where are we taking on too much responsibility until we can't handle it anymore? And then we just burst at the seams. Where are we not being authentic and honest with ourselves? Right. And we're just like kind of being agreeable or people pleasing. And instead we're building resentment inside. Right. So many of us do this. And in every relationship that we have, romantic, platonic, business, and we just
spills into that.
Yeah. It took you and your husband quite a while to realize that bottom method did not work. And that's how it was with us too, because I would hold things in because I was very self-aware. So I'm like, let me just figure out why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. Let me figure out how to address this. And I would just like marinate in it until I couldn't take it anymore. And then I would yell at him and I would be like, what is wrong with you? And all of this stuff. And he would, then it would make him kind of pull away at first.
Well, yeah. Trying to like absorb that energy, deal with that.
No one wants to receive that.
And what are you going to do? You can either lash out back, or 2017 just focused on the word patience. So it got me to buffer a lot more, absorb whatever that is, to do that, hold that space that I didn't know what it was called in a relationship. But so it helped. And then she just gave me lots of respect for that. And just from there, it just started to get better and better. If I lashed out, she'd be like, oh, now you're like every other boyfriend that I've ever had. Right. But it was a pattern disrupt. It was something that was different. She wasn't getting that lashing out. So she's like, okay, wait a second. I guess there's something good here. Even though I'm mad at you, I like you at the same time. Okay. All right. But
yeah. And so I think a big turning point for us was like after we would have those arguments, they say don't go to bed angry. And I used to agree with that. And we try not to go to bed angry. But sometimes you just need to sleep it off. Sometimes you're not going to get reconciliation that night because you're just going to keep talking in circles, because when you're triggered, you're communicating from your ego. And when your partner's triggered, they're communicating from their ego. Your ego is a little kid. So picture two little kids arguing on the playground. That's what's happening right now. So there is no making sense of what you're hearing. You're not even hearing what your partner is saying. You are in defense mode.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes you might end up saying things like, you're not even making sense. And then you'll say something that they're not even listening to you about anyway. So we're both just babbling on, so someone has to be the bigger person and just slow down, stop, pause. And maybe it is, lots of techniques to deal with that, but, pausing.
Yeah. And I think a big thing for us was also to realize that although we would get in like decently heated arguments at first, in those first few months when we were like learning about each other and learning how to navigate communication and stuff with each other, it was never toxic. And I think that this is where some people, they stay in toxic situations, whether it's with your boss, whether it's with a friend, whether it's with a partner, they stay in toxic situations because they're like, well, that person, they're going to change eventually. Like after this happens, they're going to change. After this happens, they're going to change. So I think it's really important to discuss like some differences between an argument where we're both kind of communicating from our ego and we realize that.
Okay.
To toxicity, because nobody should stay in a toxic relationship.
Okay.
Right. And for me, I would have partners who would gaslight me. So they would tell me like, that's why I would say, so gaslighting is when someone like they are taking away your experience. Essentially, they're making you question yourself. So something that would happen, like I saw them messaging another girl, they would be like, you're crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. So they're like gaslighting me to make me doubt myself, right? That's toxic behavior. And another toxic behavior is like really like they're using your past or they're using vulnerable moments against you. So in a moment of vulnerability, you're opening up to them, you're sharing with them something. And then when you're in an argument, they're using that as fuel against you. that's toxic behavior.
I always remembered when there was this girl that would never forget anything. And even though we'd come to resolution with it, she would always bring something back up. Like, remember that time because of that? Like, come on already.
That's also toxic behavior though. Because if you've moved past something and you have an agreement that, okay, we are moving past this, we are choosing each other. Yes, there will be some time where we have to learn how to navigate in this new experience, but we're moving past this. If the other person continuously brings up the past over and over and over again, that's toxic behavior. And that is so common in relationships because you're still hurt. But if you learned how to process your emotions, then you wouldn't have to live with that hurt anymore. And you learned how to communicate with your partner, you wouldn't have to live with that hurt anymore. But that's something that we had to do too, is you had to learn to trust me in difficult times. Like when I was very heated and triggered, you had to learn like, okay, she'll calm down. Like, because I would say mean things and then I had to trust you that your behavior would change and that what was going on would stop and that we really wanted to grow together. So it does take a certain level of trust. But if he keeps bringing up every time we get into an argument, you say this, or don't you remember that one argument we had and you called me this? Well, I'm still holding on to it and that hurt my feelings. Or if I'm telling him, well, don't you remember that time that this happened and how hurt I was or blah, blah, blah. Where are we going? We're not going anywhere but in circles. Right. Hey, Julie.
Hey there, Jewel. That's what we talked about a long time ago is that, you know, if we're trying to attract something in front of us, we're trying to get this goal or something like that. We can't say that we're not going to do this thing that's behind us. We're not going to do that anymore to get this goal because you're just putting way too much energy on that thing that you had that limiting belief from that's behind you. So just saying, I'm not going to, you know, be late anymore, or you're like, I'm not going to eat these things anymore. I'm not going to not work out or whatever, but it's just saying not, you know, it doesn't do that. You have to attack what it is that you want in life. So in the same way in a relationship, just bringing up things from the past. I mean, it's like you just want that self-fulfilling prophecy to repeat itself so you can be right at the end of the day. There's a little part of you that just wants to be right, which is crazy. So there's many different ways people can act in relationships, but that's obviously just that one.
Yeah. And having that forward focus of, okay, we both decided that we're moving forward from this argument. We're moving forward from this experience. So
and
what
all
does
of our
take?
Experiences, that's what we really decide is that we're just always learning to more communicate betterness every day sometimes. And then that'll be better. Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, just always striving to be a little bit better in everything that you do. That's why, the one thing you do one place is the one thing you do every place, but it's that same notion of just trying to be better. And so actively doing that in your relationship, it'll show up in all other probably verbal type of relationships, commitment type of relationships that you want to have in this world. And the way that you show up in those commitment and verbal relationships is how you'll show up in
other
romantic relationship too. So
yeah. And we might highlight other areas of ourselves in different relationships, but we still bring us into every relationship that we have. But in our romantic relationships, the parts of us that are highlighted the most are those shadow parts that we try to run from and hide from other people. We show them most to our partner. But then when our partner shows us their shadow side, their dark side, right? We can't handle it, but we expect them to handle ours.
That's right.
So if we can't handle theirs, we can't expect them to handle ours. We have to learn how to understand when we're triggered, when our nervous system is activated, when we don't feel safe, and communicate that. And our partner has to be able to do the same for themselves. Because if you can't handle your own emotions, you can't handle your partner's emotions. Yeah. And if you guys can't handle your own emotions or each other's emotions, there is no hope for growth and evolution and deeper intimacy and deeper, falling into deeper love and unionship. Your arguments will create separation and division little bit by little bit by little bit. And pretty soon it's going to be two roommates living together and you don't even feel connected with your partner anymore because your hearts are so closed because you don't know how to receive them. And so many of us get caught up in that. And it takes a choice to say, I choose you because love is not enough. Love is not enough to stay in a relationship. We all have loved our exes. right?
Yeah.
Love wasn't enough to stay with them.
Yeah.
You have to choose your partner. You have to choose the relationship. You have to choose the kind
everything.
of relationship you want.
Yeah.
The kind of dynamic you want with them.
Just know that you can choose to begin with. Sometimes it's that some people might have this that life happens to me type of mentality. I would hate to have that. I'm a very firm believer that I can do whatever I want in this world, and I just have to go and do it. And then it's just a matter of my own limiting beliefs of whether I can, pull that all towards me and fast enough and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I can get whatever I want at the end of the day. So,
and one thing that we talked about last week that I wanted to dive into is you were saying like how a lot of us have our own self-sabotage techniques that we come into relationships with, but then we don't give our partner the time to outgrow them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's what I really want from you were saying the shadow side of it too, guys. If you didn't catch that whole shadow side of things, that means just like not as great. Different traits, different people have different light energies
ways
and kind of shadow energies.
Ourselves.
Yeah. Ways we sabotage. So, but just, having that patience for that. I'm so glad. Right. Otherwise we wouldn't have made it to here. Yeah. Yeah. But doing that, having that patience for them to grow, knowing them, at least knowing that they want to try and be a little bit better every day, that's a big thing of it, because I know that she wants to. So I can give her place and patience for her to grow, versus if I know someone that really doesn't give anything about wanting to get better, then shucks, what am I going to expect? And they're not going to get any better. They're not going to change.
Yeah. But a lot of us, we get into relationships and we expect the other person to be perfect. And when they're not perfect and they show us that they're not perfect, then we throw our hands up and we're like, I knew it. I'm just meant to be alone. I'm meant to struggle. This is not meant for me to happen. But listen, we shut ourselves off to love before we even fully open up to it, before we even allow ourselves the opportunity to experience it. At the first opportunity to clam up and shut our hearts down and protect ourselves, so many of us choose that because we're scared of experiencing the love that we want and then losing it. Now, we don't just do this in relationships.
No.
When it comes to success, when it comes to a business endeavor, when it comes to the possibility of moving, of enhancing an area of your life, of having the body that you want, of getting on the other side of a plateau, whatever it is, we will sabotage ourselves the first chance we get because of the fear that we won't have what we actually want. So with business, we won't make that phone call. We won't go to that networking event, even if we've driven there. We won't reach out to that person that we know could catapult us in our business.
Yeah.
We won't sign that deal because of the fear of, well, I was burned in the past. It might happen again.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to keep myself safe from that. With our body, we won't go to the gym. We'll drive to the gym, but we won't get out of the car. Or we'll tell ourselves we'll go to the gym, but we'll never go buy a membership. We'll say we'll work out 3 times a week, but we can barely go for a walk 1 day a week, right? We'll say we're going to stop eating fatty foods and fried foods, but we go and get donuts still in our morning Dunkin' Donuts run.
Ooh, yummy.
Or whatever it might be, because we fear that once we have the body, we don't know how to be with the body that we want. So we'll just stay in this body that we know how to operate in. And I'm going to close myself off from the hope of having what I want in the event that I have it and then I lose it. So many of us do this, especially in relationships. This is where we see it the most in relationships. We want our partner to go first. I want you to show me how much you love me before I love you back.
Right. Perfect.
I want you to do all of this stuff for me before I give to you. I want you to prove yourself worthy before I show you my whole side, before I show you my heart. It's like, once you do this, then that does not work in relationships, because relationships is not a give and take. It is a union. A true healthy relationship is a union. And that union sometimes requires you to show up 80% when your partner can only show up 20%. I know Zac, he's been showing up so much lately because I've been so exhausted by the end of the day.
Aww.
He's like, well, let me get this done. I know we need to get this done. What do you need help with? And I can sit there and guilt myself, or I could be like, okay, today I just can't show up that much. He's showing up more. He's going to have days where he can't show up a lot. I'll have to show up more for both of us. But we cannot expect it to always be a 50-50. You go first, then I go.
Yeah, that's going to be that. It's only going to start and end in failure.
And resentment.
Trying to, but even just so noticing little things that you do, like I know you're not going to do 50-50 thinking with everything with a person that you're in a relationship with. Otherwise, that's a pretty crappy relationship if you have to think about that all the time. But if you're just noticing it every now and then, you're like, ooh, I'm one up on this one area. And then you're still doing it though. Just notice that. And so just trying to understand why you're doing that.
Yes.
That's going to be the key.
Yes.
Because that's your identifier to other areas of your life that there might be something to examine.
And I think that was something that both of us did really well is we were like, why am I showing up this way? What am I trying to protect in myself by showing up this way? How is showing up this way keeping me safe? And if we all reflected on these questions, I guarantee you would get wonderful answers, because what we do as well is we show up in a way to protect us, to keep us safe. Hey, Sammy. But we don't take in regard how us showing up that way, how it's affecting our partner and how it's encouraging them to show up. Remember, everything's a mirror of you. So if I'm showing up with my heart closed down, if I'm showing up in protection mode, if I'm showing up not willing to give all until I've been shown that all is willing to be given to me, my partner's probably doing the same thing. Yeah. And therefore, we're never going to get what we want. Yeah. And that's what was kind of happening at the beginning of us is it was like, I think, Zach, you were kind of a little scared to give all to me.
Absolutely. And you were doing a better opportunity. You were holding space for me and just being
to navigate
cool with everything. Yeah.
And I had to be very patient with that because I was willing to love before I was receiving the love that I desired, because it was not a toxic environment. Remember, if it's toxic, get the fuck out.
Yeah. Wasn't a jerk.
But he was not a jerk. He was very open with me. Like, I don't know how I feel like moving forward with this. I have a fear of commitment. I know that you're great, but I don't know, like my mind is telling me all of this stuff. And I could have gotten angry at him and used that against him. But instead I got curious. And this is where a lot of us, we have an opportunity. Shut our hearts down and get angry, or open our hearts and get curious and ask, okay, where does this fear come from?
That's true. Yeah. Learning about your partner, right? Yes. If you like this person so much, here's an opportunity to learn about something in there. And they'll probably learn about something about themselves, and you both end up growing together.
And you can use conflict
Not the worst.
as a position to catapult you into deeper understanding and intimacy, which will then generate more love between you. But someone has to be willing to go first. And that for us was me. I was willing to go first because I knew that we were going to be together. Like I just knew it. And because I also would tell myself, if it's not him, the next person that comes along is going to be so amazing because he's so amazing. I can't even imagine how awesome the next person's going to be. So I have to show up like I'm going to show up in that next relationship if this doesn't work out. But I really want this to work out. So I was constantly reminding myself of that. Like, well, if this doesn't work out, then how will my next partner, how will I want to show up with them? So I would show up like that with him because when he was still kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, oh, I'm not 100% sure, still have that fear of commitment going on. I was solid in that, and I could hold space for him because he was very open with how he was feeling. He didn't blame me for him being 1 foot in, like kind of a scared of commitment. I
was trying to talk it out.
You did, but you always acknowledged like, just my past. This is just how I've always been. Like you knew that you wanted a relationship, and we would have conversations about that. And it was very confusing for me, but this is something else is I didn't make it mean anything about me.
Yeah. And obviously I didn't know what the heck I was talking about.
Yeah. So
what I was dealing with.
When we're in conflict, we cannot make what our partner is going through mean something about us. Okay. Because it means nothing about you. It's everything to do with them. It has very little to do with you.
You want to repeat that?
Yes.
Important. All right.
And this is conflict with any relationship, but we will experience this the most with romantic relationships because that's where we're most vulnerable. We cannot make what our partner is going through mean anything about us. It's when we take whatever they're going through, their anger, their fear of commitment, their whatever. It's when we take that and we make it mean, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I did something wrong. That's when we get ourselves in kind of a mud hole, because we are experiencing what they're going through our own story. Our story is different than theirs. So we cannot make it mean anything about us. Just take it at face value. Okay, he has a fear of commitment. Okay, they are angry right now. Okay, they're navigating this right now. It has nothing to do with me. So what can I do about it? Remember, what do you want from the situation? I wanted love from the situation. So I sat there and I loved the hell out of him while he was navigating that.
She seemed very loving. I liked that.
I held space for him. I opened up conversation as long as he was willing to talk. I got asked questions. I got curious. Point 2, get curious.
She was.
If you were in conflict.
You were curious and, talking
Yeah.
about it. And me, I think I was just in a triggered state in that moment is what it was. And
Yes.
I don't want to necessarily talk about it because that's another thing that I had to work through.
Yes.
But learning to talk about things, guys, girls, anyone, ladies, gentlemen, talk about your stuff, because you'll work it out in your head. You'll work it out outside, and hopefully you're surrounding yourself with wonderful people, so they'll help you work it out too.
And the
Or ask
third
us.
thing, you have to be willing to go first. You have to be willing to go first.
So you got to check your ego a little bit at the door.
And
Who's going to check it first?
Yeah, and I think that what helped you was I was
guys, open the door for your ladies.
Like I was very willing to be open with him, and I communicated very vulnerably with him. So it created a safe space for him to communicate vulnerably with me. Sorry.
But also you were helping to model how to do some of that communication too, and giving a great framework for a communication when someone is, in that triggered more state of things.
Yeah. And speaking of communication, this is a tip of how you can communicate clearly with your partner. A lot of us, when we communicate, we say, I feel like you are doing this, and this. I feel like you're don't want this.
You're always doing this.
Yes.
You're always doing that.
Yes.
You never do this or that.
Yes.
You always do that and that.
Yeah. So communicating with extremes, always and never. That can really bother people. That
can really bother people. Yeah, who? Some people. I mean, because it's like, what are you telling me? Obviously, what you're saying is a lie. It's not. I don't always do it like that, or I don't never do it. So it's like I'm already instantly, my ego is like, you're wrong. So like, what are you coming at me for like that with your lies and
But something that we do with communication.
Noticing that communication in your partner and whoever it is, that because they're hearing that, and it doesn't matter what the reality is, their perception of what's happening is their reality.
So
that's it.
What we do a lot of the times when we communicate, when we are triggered, when we're in a very charged space with our partners, we do this with anybody, not just our romantic partners. A lot of us say things like, I feel like you're not doing enough. I feel like you don't want this. I feel like whatever, we blame the other person. So we're saying, I feel like, and then we place blame. We're using that you language, like you're doing this, so I'm mad. You're doing this, so I'm hurt. You're doing this, so I'm whatever. One, you're giving your power to them. We never want to give our power away to them. No one can make us feel a certain way.
Right.
No one can trigger anything in us. We decide
grab that
to act
power
on
back.
a trigger. Yes.
Boom.
So take your power back.
But seriously though, yeah.
Notice
that your power is being given away by you. And so just don't do that. Take that back, because you can control your mind, your emotions, your stories that's happening in there when you're aware of them. So take your power back.
Yeah. And 2, you cannot feel like your partner doing an action. You cannot feel your partner doing an action.
This is a big one for you.
Because I hate when people tell me how I feel, and I hate when people say things to me, because this is so important. This is just a basic, it's called nonviolent communication. There's books about this. So we feel our emotions. All right. We think stories that fuel those emotions. Okay. So instead of saying something like, Instead of saying something like, I feel like you're doing that on purpose, we can say things like, for an example, like,
frame it.
We'll use something simple because we get in argue, like we as a collective, we get in arguments over some stupid stuff.
Yeah,
sometimes.
maybe sometimes.
But so we'll use like a dishes example because I really like a clean sink. And so if Zac is like putting his dishes in the sink, then I can catch myself saying, yes, Tammy, it's always recorded. Just come back to my Facebook page. I can say something like, I feel like you're not doing the dishes on purpose. I feel like you expect me to do the dishes, right? How many of us have said that? How many of us can resonate with something like that? I feel like you expect me to do the dishes. That's why you keep putting them in the dishes and it's making me mad. What did I just do? I gave my power away and I associated a feeling with his action.
Ooh.
Okay. So 1, I can't feel his actions. 2, I need to take my power back. So I do this by communicating clearly, by saying, 1, how am I feeling? Remember, I feel emotions. You feel emotions. All of you, you feel emotions. Okay. I feel, how is the situation making me feel right now? I feel frustrated. Okay. I feel frustrated. 2, what is the story that you are creating that is fueling the emotion? I feel frustrated because the sink is full of dishes and I'm telling myself, or I'm creating a story that you're doing it on purpose because you expect me to wash the dishes. Okay. 3, now is where we get some clarity. I need you to tell me why you refuse to put your dishes or why the dishes are still in the sink. Okay. Why aren't they in the dishwasher when we've talked about putting them in the dishwasher? And then 4, setting a boundary. This is a big one. It's
big one.
Coming in and then saying like, if you can't put your dishes in the dishwasher, I'm going to stop cooking.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Oh, gosh. Oh, wow.
So it's called nonviolent communication. We first start by communicating how we're feeling. Then we communicate the story that's fueling the feeling. Then we communicate the need for clarity around that story and feeling. And then we communicate a boundary if needed.
Yeah. So, over time or something like that. But obviously what I'm hearing is that she's not being respected. She's feeling like she's,
or
doing
I'm feeling
a lot.
disrespected.
Yeah.
So see how that's so different than me just coming at him and saying, I feel like you're refusing to do the dishes and you just expect me to do them and it's pissing me off.
Yeah.
What do you think is going to get a better response? I feel frustrated because I'm telling myself the story that you keep your dishes in the sink because you expect me to wash them. So I need you to tell me why your dishes aren't in the dishwasher yet today.
Wow. That's a lot different, right? She's telling herself a story. And then so it's as a guy in a relationship, I'm just noticing the nuances of that. And it's like, okay, she's not saying anything. She's only telling me what she's experiencing herself.
That's what's happening here.
And how I have nothing to contest that. Like, obviously that's truth.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's pause. I'm not real quick though. I'm taking ownership of my story. I'm not blaming him for anything. So his immediate defense mechanism, because you would get defensive if I'm sitting here blaming you for stuff.
Yeah, like you're not because I'd be like, no, I'm just been so busy today. I didn't have time to do it that one. I don't know, whatever the excuse would be.
Like whatever people say.
Stop always like, why? It's not such a big deal.
Yeah,
gosh,
like you need to chill. I need to chill.
Right, that's not going to work out as well. Yeah.
But this is how arguments get escalated.
As opposed to me just, hearing that and saying, okay, that's bothering you. Like, why didn't I do it? Oh, well, this is why. I've had a busy day and blah, blah, blah. And all these reasons. She's like, oh, okay, I can understand that. This is what I really value, having a clean sink. This means this and this and this to me. I like that. And it makes me calm. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I can be more cognizant of when I'm going around and putting things in here and there. It's not that much for me on a normal day. Sometimes I might mess up and I might not be perfect. Right. And she's like, totally get that. Right. And so now we already have an agreement that I don't even have to be perfect with it, but there's just that respect and communication and blah, blah, blah. Everything good.
Yeah. So do you guys see how
anything in life, like
how
that.
One way of communicating leads to separation? and it's closing our hearts down because we're not being curious with each other. But another way of communicating leads to me remaining in my power. I'm not blaming him for how I feel. I'm remaining in my power. I'm taking responsibility for the stories I'm creating. And I'm getting curious with him. Why is this happening? Can you explain it to me? No blame. So now I'm giving him a chance to communicate back to me what's going on in his world. What's the story that he has playing? Because most of the time our stories are going to be vastly different.
Yeah.
He doesn't know the story that I have going on in my head. I could be triggered from when I was a kid and my parents always expected me to do the dishes. So they would just throw them all in there, even if I was gone all day, right? If I was like at school or sports and then I had to come home at 7 p.m. at night and there's a sink full of dishes and I didn't dirty any of them, and how frustrating that would feel.
Or you had people in college, roommates that would do that type of thing all the time, right? You probably dealt with it then, but I get it. And I'll do my fair share.
Yes.
And I'll do whatever. And I'll pick it up when you can't, and I'll carry you and you can't walk, and you'll carry me hopefully when you can't walk. I just always wanted a woman that could carry me out of a burning building or something like that, drag me out.
I can at least drag
wouldn't
you,
that be nice? That was one of my new metrics.
Yeah.
But then I would date people that were pathetic and could never do anything like that to me. I'm like, why don't I like her? Yeah.
And so and so this is so important to understand and this will also happen before conflict escalates.
Yeah.
So that's something that we got really good at.
You don't get defensive without those defensive words in there, whether it's your business partner or even yourself. Like part of this, we have to address eventually is ourself. You're having conversations with yourself and relationships with yourself. It's not just with your partners and everything. It's just, you can see it more easy and clearly in your relationship with your partner. And that's why we're bringing this to light. But
and if we're creating meaning around what our partner's doing or around what we do, or around what happens to us, then that's the story. Creating the meaning is creating the story. If we just take it at face value and we acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling this way. This is the story that's coming in with that feeling. What can I do about it? Can I get curious with it? Do I need to set a boundary? Do I need to have a conversation with someone? Now, a healthy response would be him answering my question and then us having some type of conversation about it.
Right.
An unhealthy or a toxic response would be someone then saying, blaming me or telling me that I'm overreacting or I'm too emotional. I need to back off. I need to chill out. So I want you to understand, there are healthy and toxic responses for this. If you're continuously getting toxic responses from people, time to leave the relationship. But we have to give our partners an opportunity to open up. And if we're not giving them an opportunity to open up, but we're expecting them to show up fully for us, it's never going to happen. We have to go first, right? And by understanding, okay, am I blaming him for something? Am I giving him power over my emotions for something? Then we have to understand, if I'm doing that, I need to change my narrative. I need to shift how I'm communicating. We do this with ourselves a lot too. People don't buy from us. We don't get that deal. We get ghosted. Something's going on in our life that's less than ideal. We make it mean something about us. We say, I'm not successful until I reach this point in time. I reach this monetary amount. I reach this financial goal. I'm not worthy until I have this type of relationship. I'm not sexy until I look this way.
Ooh la la.
Right? We can grab our power back from all of that now and stop creating meaning. Right now, why can't I be sexy right now? Right now, why can't I feel successful right now? Right now, why can't I feel worthy right now? Right? We are always creating stories. So why are we not creating better stories?
Yeah, we can make all these different stories.
Or communicating those stories.
Yeah. Just finding someone who doesn't mind storytelling with you, right? Make a happy story of the future and lean into that and make that happen.
But I think we've gotten to a point too, and this is also when people look at our relationship and they're like, wow, you guys are so great. Because we've gotten to a point where we tell each other hey, I have this story going on in my head, or I'm telling myself X, Y, and Z about this. And it's usually me creating stories and he'll be like, okay, that's interesting. Do you want to tell me more about that? And same thing for him. If he's creating stories, You do tend to kind of like keep things from me though.
I love when people say you do whatever it is. Do I? Sometimes I'll feel the desire to buffer you from some information or what I might consider negative things in life. Just it's like, why, if I can be your shocks in life, let me give you a smooth ride, baby.
Yeah, I do feel that, but so sometimes he'll bear the responsibility of just everyday things that are going on in his life with his business, with whatever, and he'll protect me from that. But that's also something that he's choosing to do without my consent. And also
fair.
But when it does affect him and when he shows up in a way where I can tell it's like weighing on him, that's when we'll have a conversation of, hey, I feel a little uneasy right now. And the story I'm telling myself is like, you're shutting me out. Like we've had that conversation a few times.
Yeah. And I'll be like, oh, so this is what's going on. If you really want to pull the cover back to
sometimes
see what's
it takes
there.
A couple days for us to get there too, because you're like,
my mood might be affected. You'll notice it in my mood.
And well, one of your natural like defense mechanisms is to just kind of clam up and try to work through it on your own and then share with me after you've like gone through every scenario.
Yeah.
So I think that sometimes when I approach him with that, because I'm intuitive and I can feel what's going on with him, he'll tell me like, everything's fine. Like, I'm fine. And I'm just like, okay, I used to push, but I stopped pushing, and we have to stop pushing our partners to be like, okay, when you're ready to talk, I'm here. We can't make it mean anything. You're keeping something from me and you need to tell me, and we're supposed to be open, and what, you don't trust me or whatever it is. Or
all
like,
that dialogue that
like,
well,
what's going on? We're projecting our stories. So I have to just take it at face value. Okay, he's given me no reason to think otherwise. If this behavior continues, I'll bring it up again tomorrow. And usually by the third day, I think you're ready to talk.
But you leave, like you said the first time, you leave a little opening where you'll say, if you'd like to talk about anything, whatever, you can do that. And so for me, on the other end of it, I can either notice that in her, that she's inquisitive. She can notice my reaction, my feelings to all of that. It's different than everything else. So I can either share that with her in that opportunity to unveil the cover of what's going on, maybe learn something about myself, ask for help, get help for something, but you're just getting a deeper understanding of each other. And so it's that whole thing of like, you drive to the networking event and then you decide, should I go inside or not, right? Or go back home. We got to this point right here where she's noticed that about me. Like, she's having that conversation with me about it, an adult conversation. I can then open that door and have that with her and share that with you and get a little bit deeper, or I can just turn around and drive back home, right? And so which one would you rather choose for your future self in life?
But you have to go first.
Yeah.
If you want a partner that's open,
no, you're right.
Or you want a business that's open, you want any type of relationships that's open, you have to go first. But that also comes with the responsibility and the risk of getting hurt, of being left in the dust. But that's where we can put bumpers on ourselves to protect ourselves by understanding that whatever happens means nothing about me, because I went in wholeheartedly. That's the type of person I am. And however this person or the situation responds to me, it means nothing about me. That's where our power lies. We have to understand that so that we can navigate conflict from a space of empowerment and understand that, okay, I can get more curious with this. Why didn't this work out? Or why isn't this working out right now? Or why doesn't it seem like it's working out right now? What can I gather from this? How can I gather more evidence from this? What am I feeling? Am I feeling my emotions? Am I acknowledging my emotions, or am I just trying to push them to the side? Because if I don't feel these emotions, they're going to come back. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right? You can't just think it's going to go away. So no, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to give you opportunity to deal with all of these things. And yeah, like Julie was saying, it's just being aware. It's a lot of awareness to start out, guys. This is what we're all trying to talk about. We're going to do some fun little exercise. I don't know that we have time.
It's not even like a crazy exercise.
Yeah.
It's more so just, do you
yeah, no. Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you still want to, absolutely. So little exercise, guys. You know, we love feeling into ourselves a little bit more. Some things.
Yeah, and all of this, it does, like to Julie's comment, it does take some self-awareness. But if you want a really awesome relationship, or you want like an awesome business, or you want a really wonderful relationship with your body, whatever it is, it takes self-awareness. And that self-awareness comes from being present with yourself and tuning into yourself and understanding, okay, I'm withholding this right now. I'm creating this story right now. I'm feeling this right now, intending to that. And yeah, this is a process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight.
It's like you're going to the gym, guys, a little bit every day.
It takes that awareness to understand that maybe I already have this opportunity to have what I want in life, but I'm seeking, like I have a plate of food right in front of me, but I'm still in the kitchen looking for what I want to eat. Right. But if I would just eat the food in front of me, I'd satisfy my appetite. So it's just understanding that instead of looking at this food in front of me and saying, well, it looks like this, or I don't want to do this, or creating whatever stories about it. And so therefore looking for other outlets in the kitchen, we can just sit down with this and be like, okay, how does this feel? Right. How I'm just going to eat this meal until I get full, and then I can move on. I can finally get out of the kitchen. It's something like we have to stop looking for the grass is greener and understand that if we're going to water it, we're going to water it.
Water your grass, nurture
but it takes
your grass.
You filling up the water pail. You have to fill up the water pail first and water it. We can't expect our neighbor to come over and water our grass. We have to water it. That's going first. That's putting your heart. That's asking. We talked about this last week. What would I do if my heart were open right now? What action would I take if I was keeping my heart open right now? If I was acting from my heart, your heart will not lead you wrong, but your mind will lead you to safety based on your past experiences.
So as an overthinker, guys, let's not use that. And so this exercise is about not using your mind as much, not thinking about it, and more using your intuition and things like that in life. So I think it's really cool because for me, it's just something that's completely different than I'm really used to. But it feels right and it makes sense at the end of the day. So super cool.
It's just a super simple, just a super simple exercise, just questions that you can ask yourself. So tune in to if you are in a relationship or if you have a decision to make. Really, you just can tune into, okay, which path that I take feels the lightest. Okay. So if I'm if Zac and I are in an argument, does it feel the lightest to just forgive right now and deal with this when we're both more calm? Does it feel the lightest to keep prodding my point until he admits that I'm right? Does it feel the lightest to just leave and go somewhere else for the time being? And cool down? Which option feels the lightest in my body? Okay. Because remember, whatever feels light and expansive in the body is associated with a yes. Whatever feels heavy and dense in the body is associated with a no. One of them will feel lighter, but this does take some self-awareness and it takes some practice for you to understand, okay, which option does actually feel lighter. So even with like a business decision, which option feels lighter? To go into this networking event, does that feel lighter? Even if I'm scared to death, to drive home, does that feel lighter? To sit in my car for another 20 minutes and then go in, does that feel lighter? So what feels lighter? I'm not asking what is my mind telling me to do? What makes the most sense? Don't ask that question, because whatever makes the most sense is what's most familiar to your mind. And it might not be what's supporting you moving forward.
That might be what you're hearing the whole time, right? That's why we're trying to get out of your mind.
Out of the mind, into the body.
And just feel it and be like, which one? It's like, oh, and am I going to regret it? Am I going to regret that decision not showing up to this thing? Am I going to regret the decision going in there? Am I going to be so triggered, that I'm going to just freak out and whatever? If that's the case, do the thing that's lighter. Absolutely, all the time. But you'll be able to get used to figuring out what you want in life, really shooting at that goal, looking at that goal, and then saying, is this in alignment with that future self of me.
Yeah.
Right. And that's usually what we would say and teach you towards that guiding light of that's your path there. And that's the easiest path there, is the one that you don't really have to work for, that it happens naturally, lightly. You just go about your day and it's like, wow, what an easy day. What an awesome day. And I'm towards my goal. I'm a little bit more towards my goal.
Yeah.
And wow, I'm so happy. And I'm going to be so good next day. And guess what? I'm going to be more towards my goal. Wow. You know?
Yeah. So really placing yourself in the version of you that's on the other side of the decision. Okay. The version of you that's on the other side of the decision. How do they feel if they took path A, if they took path B, if they took path C?
Mm-hmm.
So going back to that networking event again, the version of you that went to the networking event, how do they feel? The version of you that drove home and they're sitting at home, how do they feel? The version of you that just kind of sits here for a few more minutes and then does something, how do they feel? The version that forgives and just has a conversation and talks about it when you're more calm, how do they feel? The version that prods until their partner admits that they're right, how do they feel? The version that just gets up and leaves, how do they feel? Okay, tune into all of these possibilities and see which one feels lighter. And then go with that one, even if your ego is kicking and screaming. There's been so many times where we've just dropped arguments because we're like, we don't even know why we're arguing anymore.
Yeah, we could just notice it's like, ooh, the next thing I'm going to say, I just know is just filled with this type of not goodness. And what you just said was not good. I'm like, what happened? Whoa. We just smacked upside our head.
Point? So we will just drop it.
Then I'm just like, do we really want to do this? You know?
Yeah.
And then you're like,
But really, at the end of the day, what matters, I will think to myself, at the end of the day, what matters? Because there was that, when I wanted to get mad at you for your boys' day and and not just updating me with stuff. Like, I wanted to get mad. My ego wanted to be like, he should have done this and he should have done this and he should have done this. But ultimately I was like, okay, what part of me will feel better? Like, how will I feel the best through this situation? I can allow myself to get mad and go down that rabbit hole, but how is that serving me right now? It's not. The day's already been gone. He's already been with our guy friends all day long. I'm already going to pick him up. Like, what is me getting mad when he gets in the car going to do? Because he didn't update me with a text or whatever. Like, is it
going to teach me something next time?
Yeah. Like, am I trying to teach him a lesson? Is it my responsibility?
I'm not learning anything in that moment right then. I'll tell you that.
I really put myself in the position of, okay, what feels lightest? What feels the most expansive right now? And that really was for me to just get over myself in that moment and be calm with him. And he even acknowledged it the next day and thanked me for that.
That's so sweet.
Yeah. But so many of us, we want to be right. We want to be right. We want to be acknowledged for being right. And we want our partner to apologize before we're ready to open our hearts again. What if you just opened your hearts first? What if you just went with that lighter feeling first? I guarantee the lighter feeling is always going to be with your heart open. Even if there were times, even when I was hurting in an argument with him, I was still calm. My heart was still open because I wanted to feel that connection. That's how we build deeper connection, deeper intimacy, deeper understanding. It's by getting curious with ourselves and with our partners, by getting curious of why we're doing what we're doing. What do we want the actual outcome to be? And which action feels lightest to get to that outcome? Okay.
Boom.
Yeah. We know we ran a couple minutes over, so we thank you for hanging out with us a little longer this week. Next week, if you guys have any questions or want to go any deeper about any particular topic, please let us know. I think next week we might switch gears a little bit. So we will see you at 7 p.m. next Monday. 7 p.m. Eastern next Monday, same place, same time.
Love it, guys. Do awesome things, help each other out. And if anyone's having any issues with things, tag us in there. Let us, reach out. I love helping out other people starting out with real estate, in life. Other guys, anything that I can relate to that I can help with. My gosh, I'm all game.
Thanks, Tammy. Thanks, Tammy.
So
Tammy squared. All right, guys. We hope that you have a wonderful week and use that exercise. That exercise throughout the week. Just see what happens. See what action it leads you to take. It might not be the action that you actually thought you wanted to take.
But I'd love to hear about it. So go after it. Let us know. Take care.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.